Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. It's time for episode 3 of the series that our viewer, subscriber Tom came up with. And I call it my first blank albums, but basically what it is my personal history of how I got into my favorite bands. Now, this is the third episode. I did one on my favorite band, the Stones. Then I did a video on The Who. And now I'm doing a video on the Kinks. And this is how I got into the Kinks. And it's very personal because I'm going to show you in order the first Kinks albums I got, how I got them, how I discovered them, and then stick around. I'm going to show you from my archives the first times I've seen the Kinks many times live in Ray Davies, and I'm going to show you the ticket stubs and the original ads and how much it cost and when I saw them. So it's going to be a cool video. You will find this playlist over there called My First Blank Albums. So this one's going to be my first Kinks albums. I have 67 Kinks albums as of today, and that does not even include Ray Davies solo albums or Dave Davies solo albums, strictly Kinks. I have every Kinks original studio album and every live album and a lot of compilations. There are tons of Kinks compilations. I don't have all of them. But I got 67 Kinks albums, and they are tied with The Who as my second favorite band. All right, let's get into it. So when I was a teenager, again, I was born in 1963, which makes me 61 years old. When in the mid-70s, my prime period, when I started this in 73, really following music and the database and all of the rest. The Kinks really were at best a cult band here in the United States in the mid-70s. They really weren't well known. When they would play live, they'd play tiny colleges. Nobody seemed to care. And even in the better days of radio and great radio stations in New York, you wouldn't really hear the Kinks on the radio very often. You'd hear You Really Got Me, All Day and All the Night, and of course you would hear Lola. That's pretty much all I knew of the Kinks. Now, my oldest sister, who was a great influence on me, she didn't have any Kinks albums, so this was all on me, actually. And I used to read Cream magazine and even Rolling Stone. My sister got Rolling Stone, and I used to read Circus. And every once in a while, you would see a story on the Kinks, because in the mid-70s, they were going through that period on RCA Records where they were doing albums that were like shows. They were thematic, and you had things like Soap Opera, and you had things like Preservation Act 1, and you had things like Preservation Act 2. So these were things that I have seen pictures of, but they really didn't look like much of a rock and roll band in Cream magazine or Circus when they would cover them. It was like showbizy and kind of strange, and certainly didn't get any radio play. Got to remember, we're talking the early 70s. There's no internet. You know, the only way to discover a band is by reading about it or if they got radio play. And the Kinks weren't really getting much radio play. But I was curious. I loved You Really Got Me. I loved All Day and All the Night. And through my whole life, I have done the same thing. I really haven't developed, unfortunately. And even from a young age, I used to ride my bicycle about a mile each way, a little bit longer. And I used to go to Woolworth's. And if you remember Woolworths here in the United States, they used to have a cutout section. And that's how you used to do hunting back then. You used to go to the cutout section, and the vinyl albums would have a cutout in the corner, a clip-out mark. And they would sell those albums for like 99 cents, or maybe a double album would be $1.99. So bands that I had read about or heard about, I would always go to Woolworths, to the cutout section, and see if they had a cutout, and I would buy it for $1 and give it a shot. I used to ride my bicycle because it was before I was driving, very much before. So that leads us to the Kinks, because it's 1978. I am 15 years old before I'm driving, and I'm riding my bicycle to Woolworths, and lo and behold, in the cutout section, they had an 8-track tape of an album called Everybody's in Showbiz. Remember, this is before the internet. Never heard of the album. I had it on 8-track. Here is a digitally remastered CD of it. So, as you know from 8-tracks, because of my channel, 8-tracks jumbled up the tracks. So, to fit on the 4 programs. Everybody's in Showbiz was a double vinyl album. The first album was studio, the second album was live. But on the 8-track, they jumbled it together. It would be studio, live, live, studio, no particular order. That's how I thought the album was. It was a very strange listening experience. But I really, really liked the album. So, of course, I bought it, I played it, I really, really liked it. And there was some great songs on there. The live stuff on there was just okay, but some great studio stuff on there, including a song that I had never heard on the radio, that I still never hear on the radio, and that's Celluloid Heroes, which very quickly became one of my favorite songs of all time, even then when I was 15 years old. So Everybody's in Showbiz was the first Kinks album I ever got, and it was jumbled on an 8-track. I then, later on, bought it on vinyl, and only then did I realize that it was two separate albums alive in a studio. And then I eventually got this digitally remastered CD, had a couple of bonus tracks, got rid of the vinyl, and now the Kinks have reissued their stuff multiple times. Here's another edition of it, and this is a 2 CD set, which has the whole album on one disc, and then a whole bonus album of previously unreleased live stuff and other stuff. So an album that I just really grew to love, and it was one of those RCA albums that was not all that well respected back in the day. So Everybody's in Showbiz, my very first Kinks album. I got it in 1978 when I was 15 years old. In that year, the same year, I really just liked that album. I decided to get deeper into the Kinks. Again, I'm 15, and I found this used at a record store, the Kinks' Greatest Hits. I still have it. I will never get rid of this because this was my introduction to that classic early Kinks stuff. And you got like 10 tracks on here, and it's damn near perfect. And I still kept it. This was my second Kinks album on vinyl, the Kinks' Greatest Hits. Most of the albums I had from the Kinks back then, of course, was on vinyl. Almost all of them were. And they've been replaced since, on CD. But I'll never get rid of that one. Now we go into 1979. I am 16. Becoming a big Kinks fan. I got Everybody's in Showbiz. I got Kinks' Greatest Hits. And I decided to spread my wings to start investigating this RCA period, which was not a successful period for the band, but I was curious because of Everybody's in Showbiz and because this was a cutout at Woolworths. How do you know it was a cutout? There is the cutout. That's what a cutout looked like sometimes. Right there, that notch. I got this at Woolworth for like $1. And this, Celluloid Heroes, the Kinks' Greatest, is the Kinks' Greatest Hits from the RCA period. Again, Preservation, Soap Opera, Schoolboys in Disgrace, Muswell Hillbillies. Not a particularly commercially successful point for the band, but a really excellent release, and I fell in love with it. That's my third Kinks album. Thank you, Woolworths and Cutouts. Let's continue. What was the next Kinks album I got? 1979. Well, it's an album that I consider my go-to Kinks album probably to this day, and it was Sleepwalker. That actually came out in 1977. I got it in early 79, and this is when they went to Arista. Clive Davis said to Ray Davies, enough with the show productions that aren't selling. Let's get you back to a more commercial rock band. And the critics, British critics especially, said they sold out and Americanized their sound. I stand by my statement that I say all the time, bullshit. It is not easy to do what the Kinks did. All they did was they put out great, amazing albums that were more commercial, and Sleepwalker is amongst my favorite, probably my favorite. And I got this in 1979, and it blew me away so much that my best friend Mike also fell in love with the Kinks. And now our timing is really, really good. Because Sleepwalker started getting some radio play, the title track and Life on the Road. I would start to hear that on the radio in 78 or so, the year before. So the Kinks are starting maybe to pick up some, mojo here in the United States. And now I'm getting really into the band, which leads us to, we're still in 1979, their new album, which they put out in 1979 in July, and it's going to explode in the United States, and that is Low Budget. So I already got 1, 2, 3, 4 Kinks albums in 2 years, and Low Budget is released, and I get it the week it comes out, as does my friend Mike, and we are big Kinks fans. This album, of course, was huge. Catch Me Now I'm Falling, Wish I Could Fly Like Superman, the title track. It's a great album. It's not one that I actually listen to very often anymore, but in 1979, they were smoking hot, and they got really big, and I was finally, with my friend Mike, going to be able to see them live, and I'm going to show you the ticket stubs. The first time I saw them was in 1979. I was 16 years old. My friend Mike was 15. And we went to see the Kinks at the Nassau Coliseum. I will show you the ticket stubs, so hang out. That was the first time I saw them, and I've seen them many times since. After Low Budget, the same year in 1979, I now pick up my 4th Kinks album that year, and that's the one that had come out the previous year in 78, which was Misfits, which had, Rock and Roll Fantasy. I got multiple versions of this, SACD. This is the one that's got the bonus tracks, another great Arista album that the Kinks put out. And but that actually came out, of course, before Low Budget. So if you're keeping tabs, and with Arista, they had done Sleepwalker in 77, Misfits 78, Low Budget 79. But I got Sleepwalker, Low Budget, then Misfits. That's 79. I now have Everybody's in Showbiz, Greatest Hits, Celluloid Heroes, Sleepwalker, Low Budget, Misfits, and I'm seeing the Kinks live in concert. Great, great time to be a Kinks fan, and that's where I stood. After that, I just kept going, and in 1980, they released a live record, One for the Road. It was actually a VHS videotape, which I also bought, and that's over there, and I got multiple versions of that. And I also went back in time, 1980, even before that actually, I got the Kinks Chronicles on vinyl, which was a double vinyl album, which was a great, great compilation of those 60s classics up through like Lola, and a lot of deep cuts on here, and a lot of hits as well. Fantastic compilation, the Kinks Chronicles. I had gotten that as well. I kept Celluloid Heroes, by the way, because it did come out on CD, but with a lot of extra tracks. I kind of like that version especially, so I kept that as well. And if you're a fan of the Kinks and you got Misfits on digital remastered CD, keep the original vinyl because it's a different version of some of the tracks on Live Life is different on this album on the vinyl than on the CD. So there you have it, my introduction to the Kinks. It was just a fantastic time. I always say they're tied with The Who as my second favorite artist. And the reason why is because they're kind of different. The Kinks have, let's say, the Kinks have more amazing songs that mean more to me. I mean, the discography is huge. And a lot of times, actually, with the Kinks, I will listen to compilations because there's so many amazing songs through all of their periods that are just part of my DNA. But the Who are the opposite. The Kinks have so many albums. Like I said, I got 67. So they have so many albums and they're a bit spotty, a lot of them. The Who are the opposite. The Who have a lot less albums, and the Who's golden period, is shorter from their first album through, let's say, Quadrophenia is damn near perfect. It's amazing, but then they're spotty after that. So, they're a tighter discography to Who. It is very, very hard for me to choose which one is my favorite. I kind of love them equally, but differently. So that's my explanation. Now, let's go back to my personal stuff, and let's check out when I saw the Kinks live for the first time. And we're going to go into my archives. Now, these things are kind of fragile because I have all the original ads, and I got the ticket stubs, and this stuff is really old. But let's see. It's funny. I showed this in the Who video the other day. They're on the same page. So the first time that I saw the Kinks was right there. And there's the ad from the newspaper. Check out the opening band is Ian Hunter featuring Mick Ronson. Ian Hunter was red hot at that time. The Schizophrenic album. And there's the Wayne Robbins review, the Kinks and Ian Hunter. And the tickets were a whopping $6.50. And me and my friend Mike had 10th row at the Nassau Coliseum. That's the very first time I saw the Kinks. That was in 1979, which is when Low Budget came out. Now, we and I continued seeing the Kinks pretty much whenever I could. The next time I saw them was the following year, October 26, 1980, and that was again at the Nassau Coliseum. There's the original ad. And who's the opening band for the Kinks? John Cougar Mellencamp. Can you believe that? He was the opening act, and I remember him. And the ticket price there was $9. There you go. Also, you could see other bands I saw at that time. REO Speedwagon. So that's the second time I saw the Kinks. And let's move past that. And what year is this one? Here's another one. I've seen them so many times, but here's another one. This was a good one. This was the Kinks with special guest Peter Himmelman. Now, I'm a big fan of Peter Himmelman, and that's how I discovered Peter Himmelman. He was the opening act for the Kinks at the Beacon Theater, 5th row. Not bad. And there's the review right there. The Kinks, right there. How much was the tickets for there? Hard to see. 10th row orchestra. Pretty cool at the Beacon Theater. So that's pretty cool, right? And I'll show you a couple of other ones. Let's see. I saw the Kinks a lot. Here's another one. Here's another album. I got so many. And that's starts with the Indigo Girls, but that's not the one. Oh, I remember this Kinks show. That's the Kinks with special guest Janata at Hofstra University, April 30th, 1990. That's a pretty famous show for me because that was the Kinks at their worst. That was the worst Kinks show I ever saw. It's the only time. You ever hear stories when Ray Davies and Dave Davies would have a fight on stage? They had a fight on stage at Hofstra University with drinking. Ray Davies was, balancing beer bottles on his head, which he has done at other shows, but he was drunk. And they just started fighting on stage, and I do remember that really clearly. And part of the problem was the year before, 89, the Stones played Shea Stadium, 6 shows for Steel Wheels. And it came up at that concert. Ray Davies made comments that they were playing shitty Hofstra University to not a full crowd. And the Stones had played like 6 shows at Shea. He was not a happy fella that night. So here's another Kinks concert. Which one was this one? This is the Kinks with special guest Stacey Wilde. I don't know who that was. And that's at Westbury Music Fair. Still the Kinks of the road. That was a great show. It's a really cool little venue. It's in the round and it's small. So that was great. Tickets now, this was July 31st, 1995. So that was $25 the tickets were. They were getting expensive, right? But then that was the end of the Kinks pretty much. And I've seen Ray Davies many times. Here's another one. There's Ray Davies. Where's this one? Queens College. 20th Century Man Storyteller Tour. And that was like an acoustic one. And I'll show you one more Kinks-related Ray Davies one. I remember this one with, what was it, the 88. Yeah. Let's show you this one. This was, this is a cool page. You'll get a kick out of this one. So this page, also you can see Wishbone Ash, a band I've seen countless times. But there's Ray Davies with special guests. Ray Davies with special guests, the 88. And they were so good that I wound up buying their CDs. They were playing as their own band, and then they backed up Ray Davies. So he had a band. They were great. That was at Westbury Music Fair, no less. Again, Ray Davies with special guest the 88, February 27th, 2010. And that is the tickets right there. So pretty cool indeed. I'll tell you how much it took. $44. Woo. That was in 2010. So there you go. There's Ray Davies in the 88. And another time that I saw the Ray Davies in the Kinks. So there's my story of me and my second/third favorite band of all time, the Kinks. And there's a Ray Davies shirt. This was from one of those shows. So let me know your story of the Kinks. How much do you love them and Ray Davies? If you're interested, go to my playlist. And there's a thing there, artist discographies, rankings, go-to songs. One of my videos, it's like 3 years old, I did a Kinks video where I show every Kinks studio record and tell you my go-to tracks from each album. So it's kind of a cool video if you want to get into the Kinks. That's about it. As always, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you for watching my channel. Check out the other videos and let me know what you think of the Kinks. Have a great night. I'll see you next time. And hit subscribe if you're new. I'll see you.